floor is basically yours. If there's anything you want to go over, you can go
Okay,
over, but I have a couple of questions to ask you. So
sure.
yeah, regardless, I guess I'm pretty sure you're going to cover the questions I have anyway. So yeah. Um, okay, so I'll just start. So the first question I have is, why did you choose a Caribbean school?
Right. It wasn't my first option because I went to school in Nigeria. I grew up in Nigeria, and at the time I was left between Nigeria, and I really wanted to travel out.
Hmm.
If you're Nigerian, you would know that we have great medical schools,
Hmm.
but there are a lot of discrepancies along the way. Sometimes it takes 10 years for people to end up becoming doctors,
Yeah.
and I didn't want that for myself. And I tried to convince my parents so much they wouldn't budge. But then one day, or God will have it, my dad went to visit a friend whose daughter went to my school, all things. And he went with my brother. My brother went to school in the UK, and he was like, oh, well, he was a strong advocate of me pursuing, my studies outside.
Hmm.
So when he came back, he's like, hey, there's this school if you're interested. I was like, as long as it's not here in Nigeria, I mean, sign me up, sign me up. Because I had applied to pre-med programs in the US, but I was not, I couldn't get student loans. One, I'm not a citizen, and two, my parents
Yeah.
could not afford that kind of money. And so I went to Caribbean Medical School because it offers me the equivalent of what I'm going to get here at a subsidized rate.
Right.
Right. So that's the long and short of why I chose Caribbean Medical School.
So you, just to make sure, you attended like primary and secondary school in Nigeria.
Yes.
Okay, okay,
Yes.
that's interesting. So did you apply to any US schools, or you just did?
I did. I did. I applied to University of Iowa for pre-med because
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend there. I was trying to get into Duke as well. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what I was thinking. I don't know. I was just trying to apply. I took the SATs. My dad was like, "You're not going anywhere. I don't know what you're doing all this for." But I understood. I understand it now because based on the pocket that they have, they were not. There was no way they were going to afford my tuition outside Nigeria at the
Mm.
time. So lucky for me, we found this option that puts you in the path of becoming a medical doctor that can practice in the United States, but you can afford it some
Yeah.
sort. My school was somewhat affordable, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So
Awesome, awesome. So my next question is, what are the pros of a Caribbean school?
well, I would say, getting at the end of the day, you get that that option of becoming a doctor in the United States. Like I said, as at a subsidized rate. My tuition was less than 20 grand a year. So, and I ended up, I mean, I'm an incoming emergency medicine resident at the end of the day. Another thing I loved about, going to the Caribbean Medical School was like, the pros of it was I had a small class. I felt that we were all catered to efficiently because our class was smaller. I mean, if I went to school in Nigeria, we have like a lot of people. I cannot speak on the class size in the United States, but it just gave me that opportunity to be heard and to be seen by my professors. So I think for me, that's a major pro for me.
Yeah,
You can afford it, your parents can afford it,
yeah,
and you can still end up becoming this doctor without having this burden of student loan debt
right.
on your like hanging over your shoulders. So
That's awesome. 20K. That's
less
amazing.
than, less than.
Less than 20K. That's amazing, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the cons of Caribbean school?
Um, so I would say for me, when I started rotations and I started talking to people in the United States, it felt like I was ill prepared to some degree,
Yeah.
because they have all these things handed to them, but then bear in mind every school is different. There's some Caribbean medical schools that they had stuff handed to them. But one thing I'll say is that these are private schools. And for the most part, they're interested in the money. So not that they're not going to give you what you need to excel, but you have to get your hands dirty. You have to roll up your sleeves
Yeah.
and do the work yourself. Just
Hmm.
like every school, I think. But for me, that was a major con. I did not have the strong foundation that I needed. But the good thing about it was like I'm an extrovert. I would ask questions. I would
Okay.
I'm a sponge. I want to absorb every information. I think that's the mindset that we all need to adapt, because you cannot, no man is an island. You cannot know it all.
Right.
So when I started rotations, I started asking questions, I started making friends, and I was like, oh, okay, this is how you connect this up. This is how you do this. So it kind of helped me, fill up that deficit that I did not have, that my school did not offer me.
Gotcha. Definitely understand. What about so also with pros and con, I would ask, what about the area did you like, and what about the area did you not like?
So it's crazy, but I'm somewhat hydrophobic. I'm scared of water, and I went to school on Ireland. I know the irony of it, and I almost drowned, by the way, but sorry for another day. But it got scary, coming to the island, and everything was we're just surrounded by water. I'm like, what if something does happen? What if God just says that his anchor and just tips his skin, So having that over my shoulder was just scary. But as you move on, you kind of get used to it, and you start loving it, because at some point I started studying at the Bay Farms, at the Bay Area, just sit there, put my legs in the water or whatever, and just study, or just take a walk. So it became a thing that I actually ended up loving.
Awesome. That's amazing. What did you like about, well, I kind of asked you that, so I'll skip that one, but how did being a Christian help you in your journey? Because I know
the God we serve.
You're going to need God for this journey.
I keep saying it, like, there were times that I was done. There were times I said to myself, I cannot do this. There were times that my scores told me that you cannot do this.
Yeah.
And I saw God come through like never before. And I would say the typical example was when I got into residency my second time I applied.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time I applied to, as a chiropractic student, they tell you apply to different programs, a lot of programs, and probably have like a backup. I always knew I wanted to do emergency medicine. Nobody in my school had ever matched into emergency medicine.
Wow.
So so I didn't have that guidance that I needed. I just went in and I felt like I was doing all the right things. I felt like, well, there's no way I'm not matching to EM. I'm meeting people online. Even though I'm not answering, I'm coming to like virtual meet and greets and showing my face and stuff like that. March 15th, that was last year. We're sorry. I'm like, what? I thought I was doing all the right things, right? Mm-hmm. But the crazy thing was I applied to 190 programs. I did not get one EM interview. I got one IM. And even at that IM interview, I bumped it because they asked me something that would change about IM. And I'm like, oh, emergency medicine. And I was like, Paul, did I just say emergency medicine? And they're like, yeah. How do you save yourself from this, right? So when I did not match, I was like, well, I took the front seat. I did everything on my own accord. Mm-hmm. And it taught me a lesson because, like I said, we cannot do this on our own. If you think it's easy, then depend on your alarm clock to wake you up in the morning. Mm-hmm. There were times that I wanted to give up, and I know crazily I'll go on social media. I know you just go on social media and you see like a Bible verse that is talking to you, and you're like, and then you open your Bible and you start reading the entire thing. And so if I did not depend on God or trust in God, I'll probably not follow those Christian pages or whatever, or I'll just keep scrolling like what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And there were times that, being alone on the island, I didn't have any family. I just felt stuck. I just felt like and the time difference was crazy. I couldn't talk to my family members because they were sleeping. And I was like, well, the only person I have to talk to right now is God. Yeah. And I cannot tell you how many songs that I wrote from those moments, because I do write songs sometimes, and you can literally see the hand of God pushing you. Mm. And I keep telling people, if you don't have God, what do you have? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Just try to know him, try to walk with him. You know what I mean? So it really did help a lot. Even in my matching, I'm going to tell you, statistically speaking, I should have been EM. But like I was telling Dr. Nyola one time, I said that my Bible verse was Isaiah 60:22, and it says, when the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen. So when I did not match the first time, I was like, God, you're teaching me a lesson. It drew me closer to God. And when it did happen, I became the first person in my school to match into emergency medicine. And I had all these people coming up to me like, hey, oh my God, we didn't know it was possible. And I was like, God, like really, this is the time, this is the season, you know. So it, it really did help. It really played a huge role in my life.
I really because it's really right. Like I know people get to a point where they're like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore, and they don't have anything to rely on. They don't have anybody to talk to. They don't believe in anything, and they just give up. But I definitely appreciate that. We also have another Caribbean student online. Please forgive me if I say your name wrong. Can you introduce yourself? Because I don't want to mess up your name.
No, that's okay. Hi everyone. My name is Rain. Technically Ren Fawaj. I'm from Cameroon. I went to Ross University School of Medicine.
Oh, awesome.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So I was asking Chiamaka some questions. So I can also ask you the same questions as well, if you don't mind. And then we'll kind of just go back and forth between both of you all. And if you guys have anything else you want to add, then it's fine. Or if anyone else has other questions, you can write it in the chat. You can write it to me personally, and I'll ask them.
Absolutely. I'm already vibing with what she's saying, so I can relate 100%, 1000%. So I'm just gonna keep listening to what she's saying.
Okay, so Rain, do you mind doing an introduction about yourself? I know you said something about you're from Cameroon. Do you mind going into more detail about your school?
I don't know what else you'd like to hear, but I went to Ross in 2017. I actually, so I can say I started undergrad, University of Maryland. And after that, I applied for medical school twice, 2 cycles. And the third cycle, I was like, I don't know if I want to wait another year. So during that time, I just applied to Ross, never submitted my applications to US medical schools. So within a week, Ross replied back. They told me I was accepted. They said you can start school. This was the end of August. So I had to start September. So I started in September. Looking back, it feels as though it went by fast, but it didn't. Those were, the first 2 years were very slow, long years. Basic sciences is no joke, but to God be the glory. I just graduated 2-3 days ago, and I start my residency in IM next month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. One thing that she said that I want to add on, she said they tell you to apply to many programs and they tell you to apply to a backup. And they told me that so many times, you need to apply to a backup. And that's something that I always knew in my spirit, that I wasn't going to apply to a backup. I never applied to a backup. I said, what's the point of wasting money in applying to a backup? If I know that this is what I want, I'll just apply to more programs. People are going to try to guide you, and everyone has an opinion. Everyone's opinion it's well-meaning, might not be the best, but it comes from a good place. Sometimes comes from a good place. And so you can either take it or you leave it. So I would say along the way, a lot of opinions are going to come by. The opinions that you take them with a grain of salt. Always trust but verify. Especially in terms of applying to residency. The process is not easy. It's a very tedious, difficult process. So take your time, apply wisely. If you want to apply to backups, that's up to you. One thing I learned along the way is I also met other students who didn't apply to backups, and they just invested more time, more energy into that one specialty that they wanted so badly. One of my friends wanted orthopedic surgery, and she's an IMG. So that was already risky to begin with. But instead of just rushing in, she took a whole research fellowship year, finished that, and applied to ortho, and she got in the first try. It's not going to be easy, but it's definitely doable.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So I will also ask you a question I asked Chiamaka, and that was, how did being a Christian help you in your journey?
Being Christian for me was more of it's a personal thing. So, I mean, it's everything. For others might not be Christian, and so they might not relate to this, but it's everything, especially coming from that strong Christian foundation or that background. So it played a significant role. I don't know how else to describe it. It played a significant role. Especially just the community that it comes with. my church community, they were constantly praying for me, encouraging me through the entire journey. I can say I questioned my faith along the way a lot, because there were times where I felt as though things should be easy, but then it wasn't. And so the rocks were shaking underneath my feet.
Mhm.
But I know that there were always people I could fall on in my church, in my family, who could always remind me that God is still there for me no matter what.
Awesome. So a question I have for both of you actually is, I believe that sometimes when people are going through this process, and like you were talking about, Chiamaka, some people don't really have like a foundation of where, if times get tough, who do they go? Who do they rely to? Who do they rely on? So I wanted to ask, when you guys were starting your application season for medical school, was there something that God laid on your heart that solidified that this is what I want you to do? This is the career path I want you to take. Is that something that God did for you all, or you just knew and you just went through with it?
You want to start? Okay, I can start. So initially, medicine was not in my, my book of interest or whatever. But I wanted to study computer science. And I just felt like, well, I was in primary school, I used to get hundreds in computer science. I might as well do that. But as time went on, I started observing. Like I said, I'm very inquisitive. So I started observing and asking questions. And my mom kind of like opened up to me one time, and she told me about how she almost died when she was pregnant with me. She had pneumonia. She had a high fever. My sister was 4 years old then. And, my mom was seizing, pregnant woman seizing. And growing up in Nigeria, you wonder, at that time, what happened to that these people saved this mother and her baby, and it got me thinking. I'm like, well, God, you obviously brought me here for a purpose. Is it like, how do I serve the purpose that you called me here for? If you tell me I'm going to be a pastor, I'm just going to look at you like, I don't think I can be a pastor. So I was like, what other sphere or field can I, apply what God has done in my life so I can be that for other people? And then my sister, she said she wanted to be a doctor when we were growing up. And I was like, what is a doctor? And I started asking questions. But then along the line, she felt off. She's like, oh, she's scared of blood. I'm like, who's scared of blood? You know what I mean? So I think it was just God kind of like directing me like, hey, okay, enough of this computer thing. You'll call if you want to, we'll come back to it, but this is the path I'm taking into. It was not easy. Like I said, there were a lot of hiccups. And I feel like sometimes the devil knows that if you go through this particular field, it's going to glorify God in some way. He tries to oppose that. So when things don't go easy like that, it kind of like lights a bulb in my head, like, maybe this is where God is taking me. And that is where you experience the most trials. That's where you experience the most challenges. And I'm not saying it's always, it's always the way that God wants for you to go. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's the way God wants for you, because even prisons have open doors. So be careful of the open doors you're going into. So, and that's where that background, your Christian faith comes into play. Like you start praying about it and things start to align. All of a sudden, my parents, my dad and my brother, like my dad and my brother don't even go out together. They come back and you're like, oh, my brother's like, oh, you have to go to the school we found. I'm like, where is this? It happened like this. And, in Nigeria, we take this thing called JAMB. I took JAMB the first time. I got like a score that did not qualify me for medicine. And then the second time I took it, I got qualified for medicine. But then I got admission into my school before Nigerian, like a school in Nigeria that I had applied to, my first choice, called me and said, hey, you've got an admission. And my mom, who was never on board, just told me, hey, maybe you're going to go here because it came first. So everything just started aligning. And I'm just like, God, thank you. Because I don't know what I would have done. If I was in computer science, maybe, you just be frustrated because it's not what you want to do. You just feel like maybe this is what you wanted, but God is like, nah, this is not it. So I hope that answered your question.
No, you definitely did. You definitely answered it. Thank you. Rain, did you want to answer that as well?
For me, I've always wanted to be medicine. Again, there's been no other backup. So there was no shining moment. It's always been medicine or medicine. So I don't know. I would say I did question whether this is what I wanted to do along the way, because the thought I had of the idea I had of medicine is not the medicine that I see now, in terms of the way it's being practiced, the idea behind it, the whole insurance, dealing with insurance, and just practicing medicine because you want to cover yourself. You're trying to satisfy patients more than you're trying to make them feel better sometimes. And so that part of medicine was kind of that made me question what I wanted to go into medicine for sure. But otherwise, I've still always loved medicine. I admire the fact that I get to work with teams. I get to be part of someone's worst day. I get to experience people's lives in different ways. That's exciting to me.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. So I just have a couple more questions left, and then you guys can take the floor. But I'm pretty sure you guys probably heard this question before, maybe during interviews or something. But one of the questions I do have is, why like MD? Why not DO? Why not NP? Why not dentistry? Why not, like, why to become a medical doctor? And anyone can answer.
I can go first on this one. I would say when I applied to US medical schools, I applied to both MD and DO schools. And for the DO schools, I got waitlisted, but then I never heard back in time to go to Ross. I never had a preference. This was 2017. So this was before there was a merger between DO and MDs for residency applications. So I never cared whether I was going to become an MD or a DO. It didn't matter significantly to me. Why didn't I become a nurse or an NP or PA? I never knew about those career fields growing up. So I always knew that it's the doctor or that's it. And a lot of people in my family are nurses, but that's something that they took on along the way.
Yeah.
Nursing school was never really a thought for me because I always wanted to be that decision maker. I've always been the person to be in charge, to be able to do things a certain way. And so I always had in my mind that being a doctor was that way to go. But otherwise, it's always just being a doctor, never really the letters behind the title.
Awesome. Chiamaka, would you like to answer?
I mean, everything she said. Well, I didn't know about DO because I kind of went from Nigeria. So my school's a combined program, so you don't have to have an undergrad. They do offer that along the line. So I did not know it was either MBBS, which is what Nigerians and I think Indians use, and I think the UK as well. But it was either that or MD, and the MBBS option did not come in time before the MD option, the MD route. Okay. So I didn't know about the DO, NP. I found out when I came here.
Great, awesome. For Rain, I do have a question. I asked Chiamaka as well. I asked her what were the pros and cons of her Caribbean school. So what were the pros and cons for Ross?
One of the pros is that everybody knows it's a Caribbean school. So the faculty went above and beyond to help out. My personal mentor from Ross, she recently retired, but she had been with Ross for almost 10, 12 plus years. And she went above and beyond for me in the sense that during my clinical years, we had to take clinical courses, and that wasn't my strongest suit, mainly in terms of remembering some of the material and coming to put it into practice. She took time out of her day to help me, give me time to practice. During interview season, she called me and said, I know you're applying this year. Have you done mock interview sessions yet? So they know already that the challenges we're going to face. So they go above and beyond to help us. In terms of the institution itself, I can't speak too much to it because the only other issues I had with them were just in terms of financial aspects. But when it comes to education, they put the students first, and that I can speak highly of. That's one of the biggest pros I enjoyed about going to Ross. They give you a strong educational background that prepares you to be one of the best students when you get to the hospital. One of the cons is that they love money. They love your money, and they will upcharge you for just about anything they can upcharge you for, unless you put your foot down. Me coming from an African household, I know for a fact that you have to pry this money out of my hands. So everything was a battle between me and them, every little thing. When it came to housing, they tried to charge us exorbitant amounts of money because we had to move islands. And so they're trying to catch up. And they didn't give people options to be able to live off campus and pay substantially less. So that's one of the things where I stepped up and I said, you know what, this is not right. I'm not going to do this. Fellow students didn't want to do this. We need to adjust this reasonably, within reason. So when it comes to money, that's the part where I know they're going to really try to falter with that. Another con would be they represent match rates. They might say, oh, 96% of our students match this cycle, or 98% of our students match this cycle. That number doesn't necessarily represent students who first time match, well, not, they say first time match rates, but it doesn't necessarily represent students who applied when they were ready. Let me give an example. The pandemic happened and a lot of students were out of rotations for a certain amount of time. So it puts you off of a match cycle. For example, myself, I wasn't supposed to apply to match this year. They wanted me to apply next year. And they told a lot of my peers the same thing, about 300 plus of us. They told us the exact same thing. Don't apply this year, apply next year. But I knew going in that this is my match cycle and I'm going to apply regardless of what you guys say. I studied for my exams. I got everything in. They kept saying, well, I'm pushing deadlines. Well, that's okay. I'm going to still apply. I know the God who's guiding me and I have a lot of faith. So I'm not staying another year in this school. So that's the thing, is that when they represent these match rates, they're talking about students who they want to fit a certain box, because they've taken these students, they take all these students, most of the students finished in June. They finished June of this year, but they're waiting a whole extra year to apply for match because they want the students to be a certain way. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's one of the cons, is that the school, they try to shape things into ways that if you're not careful, you won't understand, or you fall trap to. Other than that, I always say they gave me an opportunity that no one else took a chance to give me. And so for that, I'm forever grateful to them. So if you want to go to a Caribbean medical school, I recommend it. I just say, know your timeline. If you can get out, I did 3.5 years. You can get out in the same amount of time that any of your US counterparts would do. You come out with a great education and you can match into residency wherever you want. There's no stopping anyone in the Caribbean medical school now. You are the only barrier in your own life, even if you go to a Caribbean medical school.
I love how determined you are. That was awesome. That was very awesome. I didn't know that about the match representation. I didn't really know about that. That's the first time, but it's interesting to know and to consider as well. So I want to ask, because I think you kind of touched on mentorship in a way. So I wanted to ask Chiamaka, what role did mentorship play for you?
A huge role, to be honest, because, you know, like I said, I applied the first time and I didn't have that guidance or direction on what to do and what not to do. I was kind of like finding out things on my own. So it was no surprise that when I didn't match, you know, like I applied and I didn't match, I was like, well, you did what you felt you knew how to do, but you don't have people in the system to guide you. So the second time around, like, you know, we're having all this virtual meet and greets. You know, it was COVID season that I applied, and so everything was online. And I kept on seeing this girl. Every meet and greet, I see this girl. I'm like, who is this gay? You know, so and I was just thinking about her one day when I didn't match. I was thinking about her, and I went on Twitter, and my friend had retweeted her tweet how she was like, how it's going. So she applied the year before and she didn't get in, and then she applied the year after and she got into emergency medicine. I DM'd her. I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, blah 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 blah. And she's like, yeah, girl, I remember you. She's Nigerian as well. She set up a Zoom meeting and she gave me a list of everything she did differently. You know, she's like, seek mentorship. If I share my notes, like, seek mentorship. You know, so different organizations, different residency programs, different organizations. So I joined American Academy of Emergency Medicine. I joined American College of Emergency Physicians, and all those things. And then the American Academy of Emergency Medicine residency is a mouthful. It has a platform for mentorship, especially in diversity and inclusion, that section. So what they did was they ask you a couple of questions, what you're looking for in a mentor, what you're looking for basically, and they kind of like tag you or match you with someone that has those things that they're offering. You know what I mean? So they matched me with this person that ended up becoming a sister. And she was great. So when I was telling her, she's an American medical graduate, she was like, I don't know much about IMGs. All I know is that my dad was an IMG, but we'll do this. There's no limitations, and that's what I love. Like Wayne said, like you're the only obstacle in your own course, because gone are the days where they look at private medical students, now we're taking over. So, we worked together. She told me, okay, this is what you need to do. She said, register for the conference. Conferences are important. Make friends. Go introduce yourself. Network. I didn't know this before. Like, okay, I brought out the money for it. Was a lot of money, to be honest. But I had to shell out the money for that. I traveled, and boom, everybody's wearing masks. How am I supposed to recognize anybody here? Oh God! But by the grace of God, I was going through this booth. You know how when you go to conferences, there are people like exhibitions and stuff like that. And I saw this guy. He's a financial advisor. He's a Black guy. And he's like, hey, join the diversity seminar we're having tomorrow. He texts me the information, and I come there, and they're like a sea of program directors, different, like, brown, Black. Is diversity, right? It's a diverse group. And, I started talking to people, took off my mask, introduced myself, and I started talking. And then when it was time for me to submit my application, she called me that morning. I shared my screen with her, and she looked through my application. She said, do this. It down to the punctuations, she corrected it. You know what I mean? So, and she's like, I think you're ready. Let's submit it. She helped me with my personal statements. And then, so we're supposed to keep those mentors for 6 months according to the platform. But if you want to continue for longer, that's fine. So we continued for longer. And then the program, the emergency thing, kind of like set me up with another mentor. But this one, she's an attending. So what she did for me was she emailed. She's like, okay, tell me the first 6 programs that you're completely interested in going to, and tell me why. And then she said, okay, let's find people, not program directors now, because program directors are busy. Let's find people that are interested in something that you have to offer. What do you want to do? Fellowship. I said, SIM. She's like, okay, let's email SIM, directors and stuff like that. And she said, I have some contacts in some hospitals. Let me email them and tell them about you.
Wow.
And yes, so that's something like mentorship is very important. And some people, I understand, as IMGs, we want to create a niche where it's just IMG mentors. I tell people, don't be scared. Go. You're humans. Everybody's ready to help. We want more people in our field. So, and Twitter is social media is an amazing place right now, because there are doctors on Twitter that actually tweeted like, hey, I am willing to help. Come and find me. Like, I'm only a DM away. And I tell people, don't be scared. What's what they can do? Tell you no. I mean, did you lose one strand of hair? So mentorship it really helped me, because I say it now, I wouldn't have gotten into emergency medicine without the mentors that I had pushing me forward.
Yeah. I really, really love how both of you guys are so initiative. I really feel like going into this field, you cannot be scared. And that's something that I know a lot of people, just a lot of people struggle with talking and just opening up to people. People are scared to speak because they don't want to bother people, but I really don't think that will work out in this field. I think that, closed mouth, if your mouth is closed, you will not get fed. Like, if you don't ask, who's there to help? You understand? So I really love that.
One thing I want to add to that is, going in, I wasn't the type to speak up. Mm-hmm. Something that was mentioned was that she was always asking questions and going out to people and seeking out help. I've always been very independent. If I don't know how to do something, I'll turn it upside down and try and figure it out. And it take me 10 hours, but I'll still be sitting there trying to figure it out. But over time, I learned that I can't do this on my own. It's not going to work. So you have to get out and speak up, even no matter how scared you are. The first time is going to be terrifying, but you have to do it. You have to break through that barrier. And if you're still that person who doesn't feel as though you can ask for help or go to people and just or ask random people for help. Find a friend and link up with someone who is that way. Most of my friends are so outspoken because I'm not outspoken. And so I use that to kind of take on their energy and be that person. Or I'll tell them, listen, I want to talk to this teacher, but I don't know how. Can you come with me? And so they'll come with me and they'll start asking these questions and talking, and then I'll just jump in and I'll get comfortable and speak up. So if you're that person, it's okay. It's okay if you're a bit timid and you don't know what to say, but I would say work on it and improve upon it over time.
Thank you for that advice, because I am that person. Stop. Yeah, thank you so much for that advice. I really appreciate it. And I think the last question I have for both of you all is, you guys pretty much said enough, but if you have any additional advice for students considering Caribbean school, what would it be?
Do it. Do it. The worst that can happen is you get a degree and you might not get residency the first time, but as it's been proven, you will get residency if that's what you want. Even US MDs still didn't get residencies. It happens to the best of people. It can happen to anyone, no matter how amazing your credentials are. If that's a resort for you, I would say go for it. A con would be that you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. Don't wait to be spoon-fed. Don't wait to be told to go left. Ask questions and ask again. And if you feel as though you're asking for the third time and someone might get annoyed, ask again, because you will get an answer. It's better to be certain and to do something knowing that that's what you're supposed to do than to not do something and say, oh, they didn't tell me. It's not gonna work.
Thank you for that. Chiamaka, do you have any advice you would like to
hear? How I'm nodding like a lizard, like everything she said, everything she said, do it. I mean, you're gonna get no's along the line, but just go for it. Put yourself first. And another thing I wanted to say, she had mentioned it was it kind of left my head right now, but oh yeah, no school is gonna give you anything 100%. You know, I kind of like mentioned that, and she said, you know, you have to stand on your own 2 feet. Learn how to grab the bull by the horns. At the end of the day, it's gonna make you very resilient. I mean, you're leaving your country or wherever you are to go to another place. It builds some sort of resilience in you that would take you far. You know, like look at me right now. I'm planning on moving to New Jersey, you know, but I'm already used to a lot of traveling. I went to boarding school. I came from Nigeria to Dominica. I came from Dominica to the US. What is going to New Jersey for me right now? You know, it builds a tough, it puts you, it helps you develop like that tough skin, you know, that even if you go to the hospital, you're like, I got this. I mean, do you know where I'm coming from? Do you know how long it took me to be here? I got this. So private medical schools should not be looked at, you know, I mean, they're great, right? They're great. You're going to get in, like she said. You know, I met some American medical grad. I think the APD of Duke or Kaiser was talking to my friend, and she had not matched, and he laughed and he said, well, I didn't match the first time around. It doesn't define you. If you don't match, okay, it's probably not the time. We keep pushing, and you get there by the grace of God. Yeah.
Amen. So if anyone has any questions, you can message me or message the chat. I do have one question so far. And the question is, do you have any regrets with going to Caribbean school? No regrets.
Well, I think my regret is I did not make more use of the opportunities I had. Like, you know, I mean, it was always a lot of partying, don't get me wrong, but at some point I was like, yeah, I'm here to study medicine, not to party around. But, you know, it was the Dominica, where Ross was actually, is known as a nature isle, you know, so I should have explored more because, right, it felt like I was into medicine and it did not help me kind of like figure out what to do outside of medicine. I just started finding my path outside of medicine, which you need during residency because you will burn out. You cannot have medicine rule you, you know, so I just regret that, you know, I did not embrace the opportunities that I had and explored more instead of just studying and procrastinating and more studying. So yeah, that's it for me.
Rain, do you have any regrets?
No, not necessarily any regrets for going to a Caribbean medical school. I would say the same thing. I would add on and say, yeah, I had that fear of failure going in, knowing that all the opinions I had received about going to Ross, or about going to Caribbean medical school. Oh, you're not gonna make it. It's gonna be horrible. You might not get residency. So that fear of failure was instilled in me that I can't even, don't shake, don't do anything else. Just focus on get done what you're supposed to be, get done what you're meant to get done and move on from there. So I didn't get the chance to be more relaxed and enjoy more things. I still took time for myself, but otherwise, the other thing I would say is mentorship. I didn't learn about mentorship outside of my school until I was midway through applying to residency. And I really would have appreciated knowing mentors or individuals, physicians who were outside, who were in the US medical system, people who were program directors or even assistants or just doctors who are practicing medicine. Most of the people I used as mentors were my teachers. And it worked out really well, no regrets there. But I feel as though, as she had mentioned, she had someone who was a resident or attending who was guiding them through, was guiding her through. Something like that would have, I don't know, would have inspired me more, given me hope along the way. Otherwise, no regrets. I appreciated what Ross did for me, and I recommend them 100%.
Okay, I have another question from someone, and they said, how did you both balance having a life in medical school?
As I mentioned, I didn't have a life. But I would say this, big events, when it came to big events in my family, I did my best not to miss it. My sister got married in the process. I lost a few uncles. My mom graduated from nursing school. So along the way, there were a few big things, and I always made sure that I showed up to those no matter what. So the balance for me was just making sure that I'm excelling, I'm doing well in school, that I felt comfortable enough to take a Friday night or Saturday night off and just do anything I wanted. That's where the balance came in for me. I would also say, when it comes to balance, it's really important. Prioritize your health, your well-being. I always make sure I went to the gym. So I would work out in the mornings before lecture, or I'd work out afternoon, middle of studying. I'll get up and say, 1 hour I can spare on that 1 hour. So I would say, find time. You have the time. Find it and use it.
Chiamaka, how did you balance?
Yeah. So I would say one thing I learned from a friend of mine was don't miss out on your sleep. Because most times we have a lot of work to, a lot of studying to do. I remember one time I was taking my neuro exam and I hadn't slept. I did not sleep the entire, like I came back from another exam I just studied till the day and I made a C. I was not surprised. I mean, why wouldn't I make a C? I did not sleep to consolidate memory, So do not miss out on your sleep. You're tired, okay. It's when God gave you the ability to sleep, he was not playing, because even when you're sleepy, you're not even, whatever you're studying is not gonna, don't worry about it, So don't miss out on your sleep. Try as much as possible not to miss out on huge family events. Like she said, my sister got married, I had to fly back home and I came back, it did not do anything to me. I was there to celebrate the moments, with my family. And don't procrastinate. I tell you that, and I'm a hypocrite for telling you that because I did procrastinate, but please do not procrastinate because that's how you lose sleep. I'm going to do it later. I'm going to do it later. Oh my God, I have so much to do. Let me do this. You had time to be on Instagram for 10 minutes. Do that thing you want to do, So please try as much. Everybody says this. I don't even know. I'm still battling not procrastinating, but it's a very important factor. Do not push it on for another period. Do it. If you have the time, do it now. You want to sleep. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And then I have one more question. If anyone else has any question, you can write in the chat. A question I have is, have you both gotten any negativity for going to a Caribbean school instead of an American school?
Oh yeah.
How was that?
Oh yeah, it was. I think for me it was because my school was not well known, to be honest. So when I went to conferences and I tried to introduce myself, they're like, "Why did you go there? Why you couldn't go to any other school?" I know I came to one program director at a hospital here. She's Nigerian, and she was like, "I cannot work with this information. I don't know anything." I was like, "Okay, my help is not gonna come from you." I get it. Thank you for seeing me. And I left. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I would say I got a lot of that during interview season. Sometimes it was well-meaning. They didn't know, but they would ask me, why did you end up going to Caribbean medical school versus going to US medical school? Or they would say, why is it that you feel as though you couldn't have transferred to a US medical school? Or what do you feel as though your teachers taught you that students in the US didn't learn? I mean, silly little things, but otherwise, even doing rotations with other students, I did my rotations here in the US, in New York City, to be more specific. So it's IMG friendly, but also I did them at hospitals where the grads are from Temple or Columbia. And so they would say, were you taught how to do this, or were you taught about this? And I'll say, yeah, I've watched the videos and I've learned this. I know how to do it. Or they would ask me questions, and if I didn't know the answer, they say, well, yeah, we're not expecting you to know it. I was like, okay. It's and then they would remind me that, yeah, she's from Ross. Maybe they didn't learn it, or maybe they didn't show her things like that. And over the time, I just learned to know that, well, it is what it is. I went where I went. I can't take it back. You either accept me or you don't. Nothing I can do about it.
Either you take me or you don't take me. Like, I don't understand that. I just think that people are so ignorant. What is that?
You're a better person than I am.
Like I said, you see it as well-meaning. They don't know, because sometimes people are not exposed to IMGs. So they might not necessarily know that what we learn is exactly the same human body that you guys are learning. And we take the same USMLE that you guys take. So they might just not understand that. And it takes a little bit of understanding from your part to realize that people are not, they don't mean bad by it. They mean well.
Okay, I have one more question. And her question, sorry, let me just pull it up, is, I know you guys both talked about it earlier, but if you could just touch up on it briefly. She asked, how was your spiritual journey through medical school?
I'm sorry, how was your what?
Sorry. Spiritual journey through medical school.
Okay.
I can go in this one. I would say it was rocky. Mine was rocky, as I mentioned. But I never lost sight of who Christ was to me. I always had my Bible next to my bed. I had a journal. I've been journaling for years. So every night I would pick a Bible verse that really spoke to me that day or spoke to me that week, or a particular chapter that I'd been reading for the entire week. And I would reminisce on it or talk about it, how I applied it to my day. But even sometimes I found myself reading and thinking, why can't I be that person? Why can that not happen to me? Why do I always have to get like, why? But ultimately, I always had spiritual mentors and people who guide me through, who would pray for me constantly. And I never lost sight of that. So I would say if being Christian is important to you, you would make time for it. And if you don't, that's okay. You might feel as though today I missed it, or I'm horrible, but that's okay. God still sees your heart, and you keep on walking with him. You keep your eye on him regardless. Even if you question him, still keep your eye on him. Eventually, I don't know, it's going to be up to you to open up your heart and just trust him all the way.
Yeah, I agree. I had moments of ups and downs, and there were times that I was like, you know what, I don't think I can do this anymore. I have so much to do. I've not like, and then one thing a friend of mine taught me was, the problem is, we feel like we've strayed so far away from God. What's the point of coming back? But the thing is, his arms are always open wide. And he told me something. He said, how you and I talk, it doesn't matter. You can be in the bathroom and you be screaming and I can hear you, or whatever, but because we've developed that friendship, I can understand. So what I started doing was, if I wake up late and I'm running to class, I pray as I'm going to class. Prayer is legit talking to God. And if I have a break in class, I can pull up my Bible app read my devotional for the day. I started journaling when I moved to the United States, and that helped me a lot as well because my own journaling was kind of like me telling God how my day went. So if someone pissed me off, I'm gonna write about you in my journal. So all those things. But yeah, you would get. I'm not even gonna lie. There are moments where it's gonna be a battle, but God is ever merciful and He's always ready to just come back. Just come back. I'm here. I never left you. And there are moments where you're gonna feel like He's silent and you're gonna get mad at Him. And I think for the most part, that is what having a relationship with God taught me is that yes, I can get mad at God. I can come to Him because like the Bible describes Him as that friend that's closer than a brother. If I'm mad at my friend, I can tell my friend, okay, this is why I'm mad at you. But I don't curse you out. I just tell you this is why I'm mad at you. And the funny thing is that He understands because you can tell sometimes the Holy Spirit just like showing off, and He will show off in different ways. Like, okay, so you knew I was mad. Okay, I forgive you now. Stuff like that. So.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much. Thank you so much. You guys really gave some great advice, and I really, really appreciate it. If anyone else has any questions, you can email lighthouseScholar@gmail.com, or you can email or write Chiamaka or Rain. And yeah, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of Dr. Ajana Cruz, she's also thankful as well.
Amazing!